Oral questions. Recognize the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Premier will recall on Thursday last week, with my final question, I asked him to take the weekend to reflect on his plan of recklessly shifting the early immersion program to grade 1, without a plan and the justification to do so. I had already pointed out that this change was not included in the 10-year education plan, so it was a complete shock to everyone at the district level. Already, we have 2 district education councils publicly opposing this move. Anglophone West and Anglophone South have both brought forward a variety of well-thought-out reasons that this move should not occur at this point in time. After a weekend to reflect, has the Premier realized that making this change at this point in time is not in the best interest of our children?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, for the 5th day in a row, I believe, for question period, I think I'll make the same points that I've been making since day one. Mr. Speaker, we had committed in our platform in 2014 that we would restore French immersion to grade 1. It's exactly what we did. We based this commitment on a report that was commissioned by the previous government, in which the Leader of the Opposition was the Minister of Finance. They had a nonpartisan approach. They had an exhaustive and inclusive approach of meeting with parents, with teachers, with students, with experts, with stakeholders, and many more New Brunswickers. They came to the conclusion that grade 1 was what was best for New Brunswick. Mr. Speaker, we committed to doing it, and we are getting it done. We've also made it very clear that we're going to do everything we can to mitigate some of the very legit concerns that people have based on the way that it was done previously when it was in grade 1. And we're also going to back it up and support them by investing the most in education in the history of our province, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege of joining the other political party leaders and the Education Minister last Thursday to take part in a panel discussion with CBC's Terry Sagan. As our discussion concluded, the Education Minister outlined in his words, so many things are going on right now at the same time in our school system. ISD delivery model, dealing with mental health issues, dealing with Department of Social Development, dealing with the Department of Health, poverty plan with ESIC, private sector getting involved in the Department of Education, enhancing childcare. I will ask the Premier the same question I asked the Education Minister last Thursday. With so many things going on at the same time already, why would we introduce something with the complexity of changing the current immersion program from grade 3 to grade 1, and all while doing this without a plan? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, il y a un plan. On l'a mis très clair lorsqu'on a fait l'annonce qu'on va investir davantage et on va assurer de faire tout ce qu'on peut pour mitiger des préoccupations que les personnes ont dans le système de l'immersion précoce en français, comme ce l'était avant quand c'était en première année. Mr. Speaker, I think we have yet again seen the difference between us and the Leader of the Opposition's views on education. He believes that we should be cutting in education. That's what he did when he was the Minister of Finance. We believe we should be investing more in our youth, investing more in education. Mr. Speaker, to have the Leader of the Opposition get up and question programs like ISD that are helping our youth with mental health challenges, programs like ESIC that is reducing poverty throughout the province, and programs that will enhance childcare, Mr. Speaker, saying that we should stop some of these programs because there's too much going on. Well, we completely do not agree and will continue to invest in these programs and in our youth.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, strategic investment gets results. Throwing money at the wall does not. And the point is, that's what we need, our plans to improve our educational system. I would like to return to the recent assessment results that have caused such engagement across the province. If there is one good thing to come out of these assessment results, it is the unprecedented level of public interest and their concern in the continuing decline of basic skills among our school children. The grade 6 assessments are devastating. 4 out of 5 children are not getting math or science, and almost half are struggling with reading. And what's the Premier's answer? We don't need to evaluate that. We'll just throw more money at it. We'll throw money at it, tax dollars will increase, and we'll hope it'll get better. Mr. Speaker, we need to make money work for us, and we need to listen to the educators. We do not know what those assessments actually look like. Openness and transparency should allow all New Brunswickers an opportunity to see these assessments. Will the Premier commit to making these assessments public?
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, je me trouve très surpris encore une fois aujourd'hui que le chef de l'opposition veut continuer de parler de son vouloir qu'on investit moins dans l'éducation. Est-ce qu'il ne comprend pas que l'éducation est primordiale pour notre économie à long terme? Est-ce qu'il ne comprend pas que l'éducation va nous aider à offrir la meilleure qualité de vie possible à tous nos jeunes et à tous les Néo-Brunswickoises et Néo-Brunswickois? Monsieur le Président, je pense que c'est très malheureux que le chef de l'opposition donne une allusion que les investissements pour aider nos enfants avec la santé mentale, des investissements pour réduire la pauvreté, des investissements pour aider les garderies et bien sûr la petite enfance et le développement de la petite enfance, c'est du gaspillage. C'est incroyable d'entendre, Monsieur le Président, mais ça ne nous surprend pas. Lorsqu'il était le ministre des Finances, il a coupé en éducation. Nous, on fera le contraire. On va investir davantage dans l'éducation, davantage dans nos jeunes, Monsieur le Président.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, at the CBC political panel, host Terry Sagan told us that he personally had classroom teachers approach him and say, we cannot speak honestly about what we'd like to see happen in the classroom. I think we've all experienced that very same thing. And yet the Premier would carry on to believe that everyone has had a voice in this process. They will not join the public discussion because they are worried about the consequences on their careers. The Education Minister was not aware of the law that prevents classroom teachers from helping fix the system by speaking out, but he is now aware, and I hope he has shared that knowledge with the Premier. The input of our classroom teachers is absolutely critical, since they have the unique understanding of what is going on in our classrooms. We need their voice. Will the Premier work with me to establish a mechanism, if he truly wants to have the people in the classroom speak and be heard, to establish a mechanism, a process by which classroom teachers can help us fix this system? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, il parle du fait que des personnes ne veulent pas parler et donner leurs suggestions et même leurs préoccupations, mais au début de ces questions, il a mis très clair qu'il y avait des districts qui ont suggéré et ont soulevé leurs préoccupations. On apprécie ça, Monsieur le Président, c'est bien correct, ça aide même, Monsieur le Président, d'avoir une discussion et un débat. Mais à la fin de la journée, c'est très important de rappeler au chef de l'opposition que nous avons eu un processus très inclusif et exhaustif qui a été fait de façon indépendante. C'était une commission que leur gouvernement a sanctionnée de parler aux gens du Nouveau-Brunswick et de recommander qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire avec l'immersion précoce en français. And at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, the report that they commissioned when they were in government in 2012 has said it loud and clear that we should restore French immersion to grade 1. It was a nonpartisan and independent commission that listened to New Brunswickers, and we're going to follow their advice, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, in that suggestion, I'd like to think we're starting a precedent here where the Premier will follow our advice, because there's lots more to come. In the October Royal Gazette, we read of changes to the Education Act. These changes add evaluation to the mandate of provincial curriculum committees. The change states the following. Previous committees under this regulation are abolished. The plan of organization of each of the provincial curriculum and evaluation advisory committees shall be established by the Minister. Here again is the opportunity for more politics in the classroom. Right away, we can see our problems. We cannot help but notice there's no acknowledgement of the subject discipline expertise as a requirement for membership. It appears this change has nothing to do with the development of a content-based, specific curriculum outlined for any subject area. Can the Premier or Minister explain the reasoning behind this change beyond providing a scapegoat for the poor decisions made by government? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, poor decisions made by government. I'll talk about poor decisions made by government. It's when he was the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, and he cut into education. That was a poor decision. And in fact, the President of the NBTA recently said, Mr. Speaker, that a lot of the challenges that we face in our education systems are because of those cuts that he made when he was the Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, for the Leader of the Opposition to get up and criticize the way that we are approaching education by working with teachers, by working with community leaders, I think is very unfortunate, considering that he was the Minister of Finance of a government that cut in education and had no education plans for our students, Mr. Speaker. I know that the Leader of the Opposition would like us to follow his suit when he was the Minister of Finance, but we will not do that, Mr. Speaker. We will not cut into education. We will invest more. We don't think investing in education is throwing money at the wall. wall. We think it's the best investment that we can possibly make to grow our economy, to have a skilled workforce, and to have a strong social fabric for all.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's Rich. You know, didn't we hear just the other day on CBC about a quotation, and it was the previous Minister of Education talking about defending the cuts that this government made to the teachers in their mandate this time around? So, Mr. Speaker, when I talk about putting the guns down and letting the classrooms, let the teachers speak for themselves, it's time we did just that. Let's not hide behind political rhetoric. Let's not hide behind something that, oh, I committed to do it. I have no basis for doing it, but I'm committed to do it. Because that's what sunk this province time and time again. So if we're going to do politics differently, let's allow the classroom teachers to speak. Let's allow the principals. Let's do a poll of the principals and say, what do you think of throwing a program in place without a plan? Let's allow the districts who are now voting and saying, we don't want this. You say we're listening? You're not listening. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking the Premier to listen. Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, shortly announcing that we would fulfill our 2014 commitment to putting French immersion back to grade 1, myself and the Minister of Education met with principals from the Anglophone sector as well, Mr. Speaker, very shortly after the announcement. And we sat there and we listened, Mr. Speaker, to their concerns, to their ideas and their suggestions. And they were very optimistic about our future here in the province and our education system, Mr. Speaker. Now, he wants to talk about cuts. Mr. Speaker, did we make difficult decisions? Absolutely. But I can tell you that every single dollar that would have been within the education system made as a difficult decision by our government was reinvested in the education system, and we invested more than ever before, Mr. Speaker. Unlike when he was the Minister of Finance and he kept cutting into education. And now he has the audacity to get up and tell me to cut things that are helping mental health in our school system, that's helping reduce poverty, and that's helping reduce child care. I will not make those cuts, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. What we see here, we don't have a plan. All we want to do is throw money and hope for the best. We have results that are dismal. We don't want to talk to the teachers, but we will talk to them after the announcement, Mr. Speaker. We'll come in and we'll tell them how good our announcement was, and we'll convince them that, yes, we'll listen, but the announcement's been already made. Mr. Speaker, consultation is before the announcement. It is with the people in the province. We're going to have engagement, we're going to listen. If the Premier is so convinced that the people are buying this, then why not allow them to speak? Open up the floor with the teachers in the classroom and say, you tell us what we need because we want better results, and we believe the professionals in the classroom can realize that. Mr. Speaker, I ask the Premier again, open up the floor to classroom teachers and principals and let them decide when we make these changes. Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, nous avons, depuis le début de notre mandat, travaillé avec les enseignants et enseignantes, les éducateurs et les éducatrices et des leaders communautaires. Monsieur le Président, c'est justement comme ça que nous avons développé nos plans d'éducation. Monsieur le Président, nous avons fait une promesse et un engagement que nous allions ramener l'immersion précoce en français à la première année lors de notre campagne en 2014. Monsieur le Président, ça a été basé sur une commission, un rapport qui a été sanctionné, qui a été fait à la demande du gouvernement précédent, donc le chef de l'opposition était le ministre des Finances. Alors, Monsieur le Président, je ne comprends pas pourquoi que le chef de l'opposition continue avec ces questions. To say that we don't have a plan, Mr. Speaker, we have education plans that were developed with teachers. They were the one that didn't have an education plan. And no basis for the decision? Mr. Speaker, it was a report that they commissioned that told us to put French immersion to grade 1.
Member for Oromocto-Lincoln.
Mr. Speaker, back to the facts. The 2012 report that the Premier refers to says that if there were a change to grade 1 French immersion, the needed support services for struggling students would have to be put in place and a recruitment of French second language teachers. Also, Mr. Speaker, that 1/3 of the English classes converted to French immersion requires 200 new French second language teachers. In addition, he talks about consultation. But teachers have said no, school districts have said no, the opposition have said no, the co-chair of the Anglophone 10-year plan has said no, Karen Powers, and it's not found in the 10-year plan. Again, it's confirmed by the Premier and the Minister that there is no plan in place for French immersion, change, and implementation, yet the government says full steam ahead. Mr. Speaker, will the Premier assure this House and parents that the recommendations in the 2012 report will be followed?
The Honourable Premier.
Well, they are aware of that report, Mr. Speaker. They are aware.
Order.
So, Mr. Speaker, why is it that they will admit that there is a report that says that we should be going back to grade 1, and they won't even touch that report or even mention that it exists, Mr. Speaker? The Leader of the Opposition will pretend that it doesn't, saying that our decision, in his opinion, is not based on fact. But now they're saying there's a report, and now they're quoting the report, asking if we're going to follow the report, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition has to get his team in order, Mr. Speaker. When they were in government, they cut in education. Mr. Speaker, they had a report telling them that French immersion should be in grade 1, and they ignored that report. Mr. Speaker, they now want us to cut into the programs that have helped our students with mental health challenges, that are helping lift children out of poverty, and that are helping with childcare. Mr. Speaker, we completely, unequivocally do not agree with the Leader of the Opposition. We must invest more in education, not cut like he'd have us do.
Member for Oramacto-Lincoln.
Mr. Speaker, we again have to go back to the facts. We have to remind the House that it was the Liberals that changed the grade 1 entry point to grade 3 in the first place, Mr. Speaker, that caused the disruption. It was the government, as I was Minister, that commissioned the report that he's talking about in 2012. We've talked about that since the Leader of the Opposition has raised these questions. And again, it's now a Liberal government that's switching back to grade 1. And in this 2012 report, it says that resources are needed for struggling students. Do you know why? Because these students that are struggling are not receiving TAs in the old grade 1 program. The resources for literacy and specialists were not provided in the grade 1 program. And students were forced to be kicked out of the French immersion program that created and affected the streaming effect. So when you tell us that you're going to do all you can and you can't provide details, I can look wherever I want to look, Premier. And when you tell us that you'll do all you can, well, show us.
Time.
Words.
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, comme nous l'avons dit depuis le début, qu'on a fait l'annonce que nous allions suivre notre engagement de la plateforme à remettre l'immersion en français en première année, nous avons dit que nous allons tout faire ce qu'on peut pour mitiger les préoccupations que les personnes avaient avec le système comme ce l'était auparavant. Nous avons dit ça depuis le début. Monsieur le Président, comme le député de l'opposition qui parle directement à moi au lieu de parler à vous, devrait savoir, parce qu'il était anciennement le ministre de l'Éducation, il faudra savoir combien de personnes vont s'enregistrer pour l'immersion précoce en français pour la première année. Lorsqu'on va savoir ça, Monsieur le Président, nous allons avoir une meilleure idée comment on peut travailler avec les districts, travailler avec les enseignants et enseignantes, travailler avec les leaders communautaires pour assurer qu'on va être capable de mitiger des préoccupations et bien sûr faire en sorte que nous investissons davantage en éducation pour donner à nos jeunes les chances éducationnelles qu'ils ont besoin et méritent.
Member for Oramacto-Lincoln.
Mr. Speaker, he's saying, well, we can't put a plan in place for French immersion until we know how many parents, how many children are entering into kindergarten, yet he doesn't recognize the fact that he needs to give assurances to parents that the support will be in place that's being recommended in the 2012 report. The problems that were created was the streaming effect because students weren't giving the necessary support in those classes. Also, the recruitment of French second language teachers. And he talks about hearing from teachers and getting input. Well, we actually be getting input as well from teachers, and I have one email from a principal who was at that very meeting that the Premier talks about that he was at, and they were told in quotes, the ship has sailed on that. And that was a very bitter pill for a lot of administrators. And the climate in the room changed dramatically. The impact on my school and the climate it has created has made a challenging job more difficult. A common theme was we were listened to but not heard. Mr. Speaker, the parents need to be given, they need to decide in the next 2 weeks, will the support be given to them?
Time.
And be sure in the next
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, again, I've made it very clear since day one. The Minister of Education has made it very clear since day one. We're going to do everything we can to mitigate any of the concerns that people had in the way the system was done before. We can't be much clearer than that, Mr. Speaker. We need to know, of course, what type of enrollment will happen, how many people will register for the program to be able to understand exactly how we can go about it. But, Mr. Speaker, what I don't understand is the member opposite insinuating that if we do put the supports in that report, which he supports apparently, he supports that part of the report, but not the main recommendation of the report, but he supports the support that would be given for the main recommendation of the report. So, Mr. Speaker, if we were to go and have many of the things that were mentioned in the report as support, will they support putting French immersion back in grade 1?
Deputy Mr. Madawaska-Sans.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais me réessayer. Il y a quelques mois qui se sont passés. Donc, je vais me réessayer encore avec le ministre de la Santé pour essayer d'avoir une réponse. Et je vais lui donner l'opportunité de donner à l'Assemblée législative une mise à jour où il est rendu dans ses négociations, de donner au privé la gestion d'un service dont tout le monde aime et qui travaille très bien pour les citoyens, le service extramural. Donc, je demande au ministre en question de faire une mise à jour ici à l'Assemblée législative. Il a déjà passé plusieurs mois les objectifs qui s'étaient donnés pour l'implantation.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, je trouve premièrement que la députée de l'opposition tente de simplifier la chose un peu trop. Nous ne parlons pas de privatiser le programme d'extramural. Il faut s'entendre à ce niveau-là. Monsieur le Président, nous avons entamé des discussions avec Médavi, qui est une corporation à but non lucratif basée ici au Nouveau-Brunswick, pour regarder à la gestion du programme d'extramural, du programme d'ambulance Nouveau-Brunswick dont il gère déjà et le programme Télésoins 811 pour essayer d'améliorer la collaboration entre les trois programmes. Chaque programme a ses forces, chaque programme a aussi certaines faiblesses, Monsieur le Président, puis c'est une question d'essayer de faire en sorte que nous puissions maximiser la contribution de chacun de ces programmes-là au bénéfice du patient. Et les discussions sont en cours et lorsque nous serons en mesure d'annoncer quelque chose de concret, ça me fera plaisir de le faire, Monsieur le Président.
Donc, ça veut dire que le ministre continue avec son plan de la privatisation des services extramuraux, malgré que, par exemple, nous avons une corporation telle que Vitalité, qui ont été très publiques à plusieurs reprises, encore dernièrement, lors du comité parlementaire de la Corporation de la Couronne, encore dit haut et fort qu'ils ont la gestion de l'extramural. L'extramural, c'est un hôpital, mais sans but, Monsieur le Président, qui offre des services à la communauté. Ils sont en mesure de continuer à faire de la gestion, Monsieur le Président. Ils sont prêts à travailler pour l'amélioration des services au niveau de la collaboration avec les services ambulanciers et certainement au niveau des impôts de santé. Alors, encore une fois, pourquoi payer de l'argent à une agence, à une autre corporation, Monsieur le Président, où nous avons déjà ce système-là qui fonctionne très, très bien. À moins que le ministre vienne nous éclairer où ça ne va pas bien, mais effectivement, les citoyens, eux, sont satisfaits. Alors, je demande au ministre, Vitalité disent on veut continuer, la Fédération des aînés, on ne veut pas vous lui toucher, les professionnels de la santé.
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, the MLA opposite is trying to insinuate that we're privatizing the extramural program. That is not the case, Mr. Speaker. It's very important to point that out. The extramural program does fantastic work in the province of New Brunswick, Mr. Speaker, but no program is perfect. And there are areas where we could improve the extramural program, just like there are areas where we could improve Ambulance New Brunswick, and just like there are areas where we could improve the Telecare 811 program, Mr. Speaker. And what's being contemplated here is the possibility of contracting the management of these three programs to a non-profit corporation based here in New Brunswick, Mr. Speaker, that brings its own set of expertise to the table. So those discussions are ongoing. No decision has been finalized yet, and when those discussions are finalized and a decision has been made, we will gladly communicate that to the opposition and to everybody else, but discussions are ongoing, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Mr. Madawaska-Sans.
Monsieur le Président, Horizon et Vitalité gèrent actuellement l'extramural. Les citoyens demandent que ça continue sous les deux corporations de la Couronne. Les professionnels de la santé demandent qu'encore là, pour l'esprit de continuité de collaboration, à cause de la synergie que nous avons dans nos hôpitaux, que ça continue avec les corporations hospitalières. Donc, Monsieur le Président, je demande encore au ministre, il est en train de faire des discussions à porte fermée. Il a pris une décision lui-même, sans consultation d'abord et avant tout. Alors, je demande encore au ministre d'écouter les citoyens et en fait d'ouvrir nécessairement davantage quelle est sa position, où veut-il s'en aller, parce que les gens ne veulent pas que vous arrangez pour briser un système qui fonctionne actuellement. Est-ce que le ministre est prêt à écouter et de continuer avec Horizon et Vitalité, leur laisser la gestion pour le bienfait de tous et de continuer à améliorer le système?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, je trouve que c'est regrettable que la députée de l'opposition continue à propager de la mauvaise information, Monsieur le Président. Toutes les discussions que nous avons eues les différents intervenants à la table, nous avons eu les différents professionnels de la santé à la table. Ça a été un processus où nous avons consulté de façon exhaustive. Nous avons consulté les régies, nous avons consulté les syndicats, nous avons consulté les associations professionnelles. À maintes reprises, Monsieur le Président. C'est certain qu'il y a aussi eu des discussions avec Médavis. Mais il y a eu beaucoup de discussions, beaucoup de consultations, et lorsqu'une décision sera finale, sera prise, nous allons certainement la partager avec tout le monde, Monsieur le Président, mais les discussions se poursuivent, les consultations se poursuivent, et nous avons dans l'intérêt le meilleur service aux patients et aux citoyens du Nouveau-Brunswick, Monsieur le Président.
Leader of the Third Party.
Monsieur le Président, le temps d'attente dans les salles d'urgence dans notre hôpital est inacceptable. Une norme d'une salle d'urgence en santé est que moins de 4% des patients deviennent frustrés et patrons sans se faire voir. La plupart des salles d'urgence au Nouveau-Brunswick dépassent cette norme de 2 ou 3 fois. Plus de 10 à 12% des gens attendant dans nos salles d'urgence partent avant de se faire voir par un docteur. Est-ce que le ministère de la Santé peut dire à cette Chambre comment il va s'assurer que nos hôpitaux atteignent ces normes visées?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, le député de l'opposition fait un bon point. Lorsque nous parlons des listes d'attente, c'est certain que nous voulons tous réduire les listes d'attente, Monsieur le Président, et c'est pour ça que nous tentons à transformer le système. C'est pour ça que nous travaillons avec nos différents professionnels de la santé pour essayer de moderniser le système de soins de santé. C'est pour ça que nous travaillons avec des organisations comme la Société médicale du Nouveau-Brunswick pour essayer de changer la manière que nous offrons les soins primaires afin de pouvoir desservir les gens davantage dans leur communauté, dans leur maison, plutôt que d'être obligés d'avoir ces gens-là dans nos hôpitaux, occuper des lits qui fait en sorte que ça a un impact sur les listes d'attente pour les chirurgies. Alors, Monsieur le Président, il y a plusieurs différentes initiatives que nous travaillons dessus en tant que ministère, justement pour adresser la préoccupation du
Minister, Leader of the Third Party.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, only about 20% of ER patients can be seen safely outside of a hospital ER. 40% of patients coming through our emergency room doors are status 3 and must be seen by a doctor, Mr. Speaker, 40%. The benchmark for those patients is 80% of them should be seen within 30 minutes, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, our ERs are missing this target by 4, 5, and even 6 times across this province. This has created a serious patient safety issue, Mr. Speaker. So my question is, what is the Minister going to do to address this threat to patient safety?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, patient safety is something that is very important. And transforming our healthcare system and modernizing our healthcare system is something that is a priority for this government. You know, our 3 main priorities have been job creation in the economy and investing more in education and in healthcare, Mr. Speaker. And we're acting on those recommendations. You know, there are many different initiatives that are underway as we speak. The member opposite talks as if we can just flick a switch and everything's going to go away. It's not that simple, Mr. Speaker. You know, we're investing in community health centres. We're investing in nursing homes. Just this morning, our Premier and Deputy Premier toured the new downtown community health centre here in Fredericton. This is an investment to try to keep people in the community and out of the ER and out of the hospital beds up at the deck, Mr. Speaker. It's by making these types of investments and by modernizing the system, working with our doctors to modernize collaborative practice. This is how we're going to address wait lists in the
Leader of the third party.
Mr. Speaker, the patients I'm concerned about here are the ones whose conditions get worse, much worse, while they're sitting in the waiting room waiting to see a doctor, Mr. Speaker, or those who leave in frustration who actually are very ill and have with serious consequences when they get home and end up back in the hospital by ambulance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ER docs are permitted to call extra help in a crisis when there's a train wreck or a plane crash. Mr. Speaker, my question from the Minister is, will he direct the health authorities to immediately define the threat posed to patient safety when ERs fail to meet their benchmarks as a crisis, so our ER doctors have the authority to call in the help they need to safeguard the safety of their patients?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest to the member opposite and to both parties opposite that if they want to address issues like the wait list, Mr. Speaker, then they have to stop opposing every single reform and every single idea that we bring forward to modernize and revamp our healthcare system, Mr. Speaker. Because if we continue to do the same things the same way over and over again, but expect different results, that's simply not going to happen. That's why we need to take innovative approaches like the approach we're looking at taking with Medavie. Innovative approaches like the approach we're taking with the New Brunswick Medical Society in collaborative family practices, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that patients get same-day, next-day access to their family doctor. That's why my department, along with the Department for Seniors and for Families and Youth, are investing in things like the Home First strategy, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we're able to care for seniors in the comfort of their own home. It's better for them, it's better for government, it's better for everybody involved. If only the opposition would...
Time for all questions has expired.